the Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Financial Survival Network is presented to you by Regal Assets. Buy and sell physical gold and silver through your existing retirement plan, 100% tax-free with Regal Assets. If you want to include physical gold or silver in your existing IRA or old 401k, request your free investment kit, which was recently featured in the Forbes and Smart Money Wall Street Journal magazines. Call toll-free 855-678-6620, 855-678-6620, or visit regalassets.com. You're listening to the FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com. I'm Kerry Lutz on 1590 WPSL. What is going on with these cycles? What's going on with the stars? How did this happen? Well, let's talk with Arch Crawford of CrawfordPerspectives.com. Arch, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So what's going on with the markets here? It looks like everything's imploding around us. Well, everything's going down, that's for sure.
Well, I would say that with the headlines that are in the paper daily during the last few months, if it had happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago, the market would have cut in half already. And I think that that the markets are being interfered with by our government at very, very high levels, and they just go directly in and buy the index futures when things are looking testy. And this is the testiest they've been in a while, but we haven't had a 250-point down day in a very, very long time. And I think that with the headlines that we've seen, that has to be manipulation.
Yeah, you would think a little thing like Cyprus going under and bank runs in Europe, whether they're quiet bank runs or they're really happening out there, you would think that would have a deleterious effect on the stock market, and yet it seems like the Dow is the last man standing.
Right. I said in my last letter, I quoted something from Investors Business Daily. Earlier in the week, the noise swirling around Cyprus appeared to be settling down until Dutch Finance Minister Jeroen Dijsselbloem announced on Monday that Cyprus was a template for dealing with other troubled economies. The idea that raiding savings accounts is the way for government to solve problems unnerved traders and forced a retraction from Dijsselbloem.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Whitfield in Investors Business Daily. And then I noted under it, we were surprised that this revelation by EU muckety-mucks didn't drive gold up $1,000 or so, editor.
Yeah, and here we are. And if I remember the last time we talked, you said May 20th, around there was a very important date?
Yes, indeed. That is a Mayan calendar date every year, in that there's no shadow at noon in Chichen Itza and the major Mayan cities. Last year it was a solar eclipse, and this year it's the next Uranus-Pluto square, which I was at an astrology conference, the biggest one for the year last year in May in New Orleans, and the astrologers were all looking at the Mayan end date, and we didn't think that looked too bad. There was nothing horrifying in the Mayan 21 December last year. It didn't look that bad. But they're all very concerned about the series of Uranus-Pluto squares, which will be, I think, 7 before we get to the end of them in the latter half of 2016. And they tend to occur around major depressions and major wars, going way back. So that's the ones that we're worried about, and that's May 20th is the next one. Now, here's what my friend Bill Meridian wrote in Dell Horoscope for the coming lunar eclipse on April 25th. This month's full moon, a lunar eclipse, occurs on the 25th. It falls at 5:46 Scorpio. This is a harsh eclipse. It is conjunct Saturn at 8 Scorpio and opposite Mars at 4 Taurus, a pair of rough customers. Most of the bodies in this configuration tie into the angles at Washington, D.C. That angles meaning the ascendant, descendant, midheaven, IC, straight up and straight down at Washington, D.C. And Jupiter sits 1 degree from its midheaven. The eclipse is the strongest influence in the horoscope, so it will be a tough time at the U.S. Capitol. Conflict is likely. The eclipse stretches from the 2nd house to the 8th house for Washington, D.C., so issues will likely be financial. Mars transits over the eclipse degree on the 28th, April 28th, and the Sun moves up to oppose Saturn that same day. So this will be a release or a trigger point for the harsh eclipse energies. I also noticed that some other combination hits on the 30th. So I would say the 25th to the 30th, we're going to have some surprising events in the world and possibly even in the U.S.
Yeah, well, it certainly appears that something big is happening, and, there's really no explanation for what's going on in the commodities, but oil's down, West Texas Intermediate under $90, and you look at gold and silver, copper, really they're all going down, the grains even.
Yes, well, this is a highly deflationary environment, and people are not spending their money. If they're saving it and they're putting it in the bank, and now with this announcement that, by the way, you're now an unsecured loan officer to a bank.
Yeah.
that your money that you thought was safe in there is unsecured loan to the bank.
Mm-hmm.
This is horrendous, and that has never been the standard. Everybody's always rushed to protect the depositors as much as possible, but the government has now said this is a template. The government of Europe has said this is a template of how we're going to solve our problems. Instead of the government bailing out the bank, the depositors are going to bail out the bank. And we'll just take the money, whatever percentage we need.
And the whole bailout in Cyprus, the price tag's gone up by $6 billion because they let all the Russians pull their money out because they didn't want to die.
I hadn't heard that, but I read Jim Sinclair's comment on that if you're messing with those people, they're going to ask, how's your lovely family? We know where you live.
Yeah, all of that. Yeah,
I hadn't heard they had actually done that, but that would be my expectation, or either some of these Cyprus people or some of the EU people might end up floating in the river.
Yeah, and in fact, the branch that was located in Moscow of one of these Cypriot banks was never closed. No restrictions ever put or placed upon the Russian depositors. So I guess the word was out: either we get our money or else.
Uh-huh.
And here we are. Now obviously they allowed them to pull out around $6 billion, probably not quite all of it, but a sizable portion. And now they have to come up with the money. The EU says, you got to come up with the money. Their rationale was, we don't want to bail out European oligarchs with our money. And,
Russians.
Yeah. So there it is. Yeah, we don't want to bail out the Russian oligarchs with the EU's money. And, now they're not. It looks like Cyprus is going to have to leave, and that's got to have a cascading effect on the euro.
Well, it's about time. They keep putting these things together with baling wire and duct tape.
Yeah, and chewing gum.
And chewing gum. The duct tape works pretty
Yeah.
good in my life.
Hey, you use duct tape to hold the wings onto airplanes in Greece. I've seen it with my own eyes.
Well, it's supposed to be good up to 120 or 30 miles an hour, which is enough for most light planes.
Yeah, well, one time I was on an Olympic Airlines plane. It was an old A300, and I looked out the window, and there was duct tape on the pylon that holds the engine to the wing. And I looked at that. I got like totally nauseous, and I said, "Oh my goodness, like it can't be this bad." And then I was on the same trip, and I was flying back from one of the islands on a big plane, and there was a whole article about how horrible Olympic Airlines maintenance is, or was. I don't know if it still is. Probably still is bad, because socialistic enterprises aren't into maintenance. And it was, oh my God, I can hardly wait to get off this plane onto an American carrier and get home. I don't want to go on any more of these Greek airplanes. And I think that the consensus of the depositors in Southern Europe is they don't want to deposit any more money, anything more than they have to, in these Greek and Italian, Spanish and Portuguese banks.
Mm-hmm.
So
what charts do you want to look at? I'd say the oil has broken the gold has broken the most major support, which is the old low at 1523.90, I think it was.
right.
And when that broke, the selling, they hit the stops, and there were a lot of stops.
Yeah, all the way down the line, right? 1500 especially.
Mm-hmm. And then it went down below 1500, and then it stabilized around there on Friday, and hit it again today, down 137 at 1363.80, with a low of 1355.30 on the current contract, I think. That's not the closest contract. That's the most active contract.
Right. Yeah, rather remarkable decline, and I don't think anyone out there was predicting a decline that large. The biggest decline I saw somebody predicting was 1450, although I did see 2350 for silver, and it's just about there now, 2450. So
well, I didn't say what it would go down to, but I just said it would be very weak below 1523.90.
yeah.
I'd say that's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I'd say that you were pretty accurate there. And then we look at the silver. Silver hasn't given back as much, anywhere near as much as gold.
Mm-hmm. Well, silver went down more earlier.
Yeah.
So, but this is a flash crash in the physicals, even the commodities.
Mm-hmm. It looks like an orchestrated crash too. I mean, what I heard was on Friday that gold had bounced under 1500 and then went back over 1500, and then a flood of puts were sold on GLD, and that just brought it down the rest of the way and set up for today's margin calls, which I think was the intention.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they say that hedge funds are dumping metals like you can't believe, whether physical metal or paper. I'd say probably paper. But the other thing that happened that really didn't get much coverage in the media at all was that Rick Perry said that he wanted the Federal Reserve to give Texas, mainly the University of Texas's gold, to Texas to store. And
yes, I did see that.
yeah, and maybe
good for him.
Yeah.
Germany wants theirs back, and they haven't had an audit of the gold since Eisenhower.
Right.
And why not? I mean, the only reason I can imagine why not is that they've already stolen it. Somebody has already stolen it. It's highly related to the government and the world order.
It's been leased out or whatever, and are traded, and there's claims on it. I mean, what's his name? Rickard seems to think that they still have it, but it's got multiple claims on it, and they'll just grab it when the time is right. And the way the government's acting now, completely lawless, it's hard to argue with that logic.
Uh-huh. Well, the other thing that I mentioned in my last newsletter is that Naomi Wolf, who wrote a book in 1994 called The End of America and Where We Stand in Our Shift to the Fascist State.
Yeah.
That there are 10 things, she says, that show that you're a fascist state, and that with the purchase of 30,000 drones, the United States government has now hit the 10th item, and that we are now a police state.
Yeah, there's no law. It appears we're totally lawless, and it's the rule of men, not the rule of law.
Mm-hmm. And the president is following closely behind the pattern of Hitler, who was duly elected and who started assuming extra power, and no one stopped him, and he took some more, and no one stopped him and took some more. Well, the people say they want the Democrats and the Republicans to work together, and in the one letter recently I mentioned that they worked together in January to renew the National Defense Authorization Act, which says that the president can say that you and I are terrorists, and the military can steal us away to Guantanamo or wherever, or cut our throats and never be heard from again. Our families won't hear, no lawyer call, no nothing.
Yeah.
And so Rand Paul had this fool's day. He was filibustering because he asked the government, does the president now have the power to kill, order a kill on American soil? They didn't answer, and then Holder came back and said he does not have the right unless they're combatants.
Whatever
and I'm
that
saying,
means.
Well, who determines who's a combatant? The president does.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that if they come for the guns, which I believe they will do, I think it's just definite that they're going to militarily come for the guns, as they did in Katrina in New Orleans.
Right.
That you will all of a sudden have, my guess, 10 to 30 million combatants.
Yeah, if you want to make them combatants.
And now the military can drone the house and families of these 10 to 30 million Americans because they're combatants now.
Sounds like it. Yeah. Well, it's all very worrying, which means you got to have some food, which means preparewise.com, because if you don't have food, it's going to be real hard to survive, and conceivably you can see a scenario where there's food riots or disruptions of the food supply, right?
Well, if there's a disruption, the stores are normally sold out in about 3 days, but if there's like a hurricane coming in Florida, it's like 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, the shelves are swept clean.
And you can last a whole lot longer if you have a source of water and no food than if you have food and no water.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, one thing I've got in the house that I'm renting, a woman here was a gardener, and she's got these rain barrels that you just hook up to your liters, and the water just pours right in there, and then you take a filter, and, I've got like a couple 100 gallons of water in these rain barrels that I didn't even realize I had. And I guess she used it for gardening or something, or irrigation, I don't know what. But
yeah, we do that too.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense to have some rain barrels as well as PrepareWise.
Especially because here, water could be a problem in the desert.
Yeah. Yeah, well, in Florida it's not so much a problem, but theoretically I guess it could be. And I don't know what your feelings are about the chemtrails in the air, but I was in Arizona a couple of weeks ago, and a perfectly clear day, and then I see them start drawing the lines in the sky, and then it's cloudy.
Funny about that, isn't it?
Yeah. What are they doing there? I'd like to know, but nobody's talking about it, geoengineering. But it's obvious. Down here in Florida, I see it all the time, all these crosses and tic-tac-toe signs in the sky. And, you know, I was watching one time, I was in a plane, and there was a plane above us putting out a trail. It didn't appear that our plane was. And that plane was, I'd say, 10,000 feet above us, which means had to be a military plane because the civilian planes don't fly that high.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's certainly a concern.
Yeah, like so many others. So get prepared. I still think, 90% junk silver, good thing to have nearby, as well as some food and a means of getting a water supply. And
I said one of the conference I was speaking at, they were saying that circulated silver may be better because, you know, who's going to give you change for a gold coin?
and nobody.
And I said I agree with that because, you know, you can always probably get a loaf of bread for an old silver dime, or maybe a car, depending on how bad it gets.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No question. Well, Arch, we appreciate your being on. So just get prepared. Preparewise.com. Use the code Lutz. And Arch, your newsletter, how do you get it?
CrawfordPerspectives.com, or call. We're in the phone book in Tucson, and CrawfordPerspectives.com on the internet. And if you have any trouble with that, then give us a holler. We're always available.
Yeah. All right.
And the prices are the same they were when we started in 1977.
So we're still priced in $1977, which is a steal. All right.
My work is priced in $1977.
That's funny. Well, Arch, thanks for being on again. FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com. Go there, sign up for the conference we're having later in June. And Arch, we'll talk to you again real soon.
Very good, sir. Bye-bye.
May 20th.
Definitely.
All right. You take care. I keep hearing that many people believe that the best investments are sold by large investment houses. But how many people do you know who got rich in the stock market? I thought so. Jason Hartman has helped thousands of people create real wealth with real estate. He has over 20 years experience, and his company provides the complete solution for real estate investors. Isn't it time you acquired property in diverse, growing markets nationwide for as little as $15,000 down? Don't let inflation destroy the value of your savings, stocks, or bonds. Real estate is the one investment that allows you to profit from inflation. For cash flow and capital appreciation, there's nothing else like it. Make your money work as hard as you do by building an income property empire. Go to www.jasonhartman.com and tell him Kerry sent you.